bit about me. I've been in this business for a long time, here in Asia. I've been based in Singapore for the last 10 years, and accompanied some of these big AAA companies into online, originally at Blizzard, working on Diablo, StarCraft, these kind of properties. They became very, very hot in Korea, in China, and as we were preparing for the launch of World of Warcraft, we saw a lot of excitement throughout the region, and I think we put a great deal of effort into launching this game in the best possible conditions. And it went wild. I mean, as all of you know, it's been a tremendous success in the region. World of Warcraft counts more subscribers in China than anywhere else in the world. It's been monetizing very well. So this is where I personally realized that there's a lot to do when you have a great IP into the online space. So you got to do it very well, though. I worked later on for EA, and I had also some hits and misses, but one of the hits was FIFA Online in Korea, which is doing really well, and it was adapted from the actual FIFA game for our consoles into a full online free-to-play experience. So that validated the idea that you can actually work with a console game and make it a tremendous online experience. And the game was launched in 2006, and it's still running today, and it's actually the #4 game in Korea right now. So after those experiences, I moved on and worked for Take-Two. Take-Two has a fantastic catalog for doing these kind of online projects based on console and legacy IP. Civilization, NBA 2K, sports games in general, GTA. These kind of IP are fantastic because people love them, and they have an element of addictiveness, of community that is built into them. So what we've been doing for the last 5 years is basically assembling a group, and some of my team is here, Clifford, Xavier, part of this team based here in Singapore. We have people in Korea, China, and Japan, Taiwan, who are basically trying to assemble these projects, build a product case that's relevant, build a business case, establish partnerships with some of the biggest companies, and look at doing MMOs, advanced casual games, and right now for the last 2 years we've been increasingly into social and mobile games as well. So why are we doing this? Basically, we see the gaming landscape shifting. We're not dumb. We know that mobile is getting increasingly important. We know that free-to-play is getting massively popular everywhere in the world. So we want to be part of that. We also want to reach new audiences. Especially we see a lot of what we call fragmentation. We see that people no longer spend 7 hours in the game, but they would spend 7 hours a day on different platforms and devices connected to an entertainment experience. So the idea is, how do we plug into that? How do we adapt to this changing landscape? Also on our end, we're pretty much like movie or music industry. We make a hit, make a lot of money, billions of dollars. We don't make, we lose a lot of money. So the idea is to stabilize the revenue streams and have recurring revenue streams coming from online. That's on the business side. 2 case studies that I want to talk to you about today. I'm just going to briefly introduce them, and then refer to it. The first thing that we did was a big deal with Tencent in China to bring our NBA 2K game into an online game. We started 4 years ago, and we assembled a team both from our side and on the Tencent side as well to basically co-develop that game with the aim of squarely making it big in China. So there was a bold move. Not many people have attempted that before. Pretty much everyone has failed, at least in China. But Tencent was at the point where they felt they were capable of doing it, they were confident, they were extremely motivated on doing so. And I'm going to talk about the experience and the results in short while. The second one is Civilization Online. Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the Civilization IP. It's an IP that appeared 15 years ago now. And it's still this beloved IP. Civilization 5 was a big hit for us. And we've always tried to make this an online experience that would be something that the hardcore fans of Civilization can be proud of and happy to play. So there is a screenshot below my top script stamped there, but I'm not allowed to show it yet. We're going to announce the game later this year and start to show some of the assets. So it all starts, I'm going to explain a little bit the process that we've followed in the last few years onto building this portfolio. But basically start with building the product case. Building the product case is basically, what is the product idea? What are we endeavoring to do? and what are our keys and what is our path to success. So it takes a lot of survey. A lot of these things are going to be decided there and then when we actually look at our customers, listen to their preferences, see the appeal of the IP. Civilization, for example, is extremely popular in Japan. It's been huge in Korea of late as well. And we have a very strong hardcore base in China. It's a game that pretty much everyone in the gaming industry has played at least once, and more often than not has been completely hooked on it. So that was a great starting point for us, not only to know what is the popularity of the IP, but really why people like it. And so we spent a lot of time doing surveys, talking to the fans, going after the fan sites to understand why they like it so much, what are their preferences, do they prefer C3, C4, C5, and start to identify patterns of preferences in the users. I think it all starts here to see and listen from the actual customers what they like the best about the games. The second thing is to look at the market fit. Obviously, markets in Asia are very different from the West. So after 10 years here, we start to be quite knowledgeable about the differences, but still, it's always good to check what makes Korea a specific market. What are the habits there, China and Japan? And then start to blend that into our understanding of the IP. So you have an IP fit, you have a market fit, then you can start to look at what is an ideal feature set, at least from a top level point of view. What do you need to make at least right? More often than not, we end up into thinking of our games and as the need for them being a lot more accessible and rewarding. I think you've heard that the whole day, and Tetsuya-san also mentioned that a few times. It needs to be instantly rewarding. It needs to be something that's fun from the first few seconds. And so we acknowledge that. And it's something you can do with a AAA IP as much as you can do with a mobile game. So that's the big change that we have to do, because typically on a console, on a PC game, you won't monitor that first few levels, the first few minutes of experience of the game. It's pretty much like the guys bought it at the retail and we can forget about it. At least that was the case a few years ago. The last part is going to be about, okay, we know what the product needs to be. Now, how do we make this a good business? And so here we spend a lot of time looking at partners who are the best positioned people in the industry, who have an habit of having repeatable successes in Asia. And so that is extremely important for us, because you see a lot of fly-and-buy operations, but who is there to stay, who has a very smart approach to the market, and shown that good management, good corporate governance can keep us on the long-term basis. Most of our projects run for at least 5 to 7 years, so you want to be associated with somebody who can last that distance. So once we start building the game and getting into production, you have a few things that from the experience we've had, I can tell about what to do, what not. The first thing is to have the blessing of what we call the studios of origin. Say, for example, Firaxis and Sid Meier on Civilization, the guys who have been creating NBA 2K for the last 10 years. They own this IP, it's their baby. And if you don't have their buying into the whole project, not just the business prospect, but the whole project, it's going to be very, very difficult for you. So this is really where we start. So we usually spend a lot of time talking with these people, go and meet them, bring them in Asia to ensure that they understand what it's about and why this is something that's going to be really cool to work on. Another big thing that we've done, we found as being the key, is to bring some of the folks from the US and Europe to actually work in Asia and really relocate, and because they have this technical knowledge, they know the tech, they know the code, they know the design, to actually be based in China, in Korea, in Japan. We've opened studios in all these locations to be sure that they can provide what they're good at. So that's the first point. The second is, because we are a AAA company, AAA is where we come from and it's where we want to be. So we want to always push the technological envelope. We use the latest engine. Sometimes our clients run a little bit big, so we have to trim that down, but still, we're always trying to push at max what we can do with the technology. So that's an important point for us, and that materializes in the designs as well. Our designs tend to be very friendly to the consumers. We're not trying to make a buck as fast as possible. and we're okay, we have some time, our life cycles are long enough, so we can take the time in monetizing our audience. So that gives also this kind of peaceful environment to our users, and they don't feel too threatened to buy after 5 minutes in a game. So the last thing is that we want to have our partners in the region who are capable of having a vision of what to do with the game. Typically, we have a lot of people approaching us, trying to buy our brands and put it on an existing concept. We try not to do that. It ruins the IP, doesn't make a great game, and it's not so interesting for us, even business-wise. What we tend to do is look at people who understand very well the IP, be it basketball or Civilization, for these two examples. And so there can be an appreciation from the guys in the West and the guys in the East in working together and sharing that vision. This is extremely important. Sometimes it takes time, but for example, for our Civilization game, we're working with this studio called XL Games in Korea. These guys are basically have been developing Lineage originally a long time ago. The founder of XL is also the founder of NCSoft, Nexon. He's seen a lot, and very talented person, great team. And what's interesting is that his childhood dream is to make a Civilization game. And so when the opportunity presented to him, he jumped on it. And that's the only game that he's doing that is not his own IP, that he's not inventing, but he's very, very happy about it, very passionate about it. So that is a typical example of a shared vision, shared appreciation for the IP, and this is exactly what we're looking for. So, so when talking about projects in South Asia or with people that I've met today, this is the kind of things that I try to evaluate. Do you understand the IP? Do you like the IP? Do you want to go the long run together to make something that's going to feel great? Second is, this is online games, this is social games, so we have to bring that part. We have to understand exactly what this business is about, and this is a few of the things that we must do that are pretty obvious, but that's interesting because they come, you know, as the real transition points, because this is stuff that are not done in a console world. Some of the things like shortening the dev loops, for example, we have, you know, normally the development cycles that run into 3 months, 6 months. And here in online, we need to develop new features in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Prototype, go to market super early, and then iterate. This is a new thing for a lot of our guys. And so it was interesting to organize that transition from long development cycles into short loops and fast iteration on our game. This doesn't run against making a AAA experience. On the contrary, it's just a different way of approaching the development cycles. The other thing is customer centricity, and in a different way they used to be done. When I talk with the NBA 2K guys, for example, they love their consumers. They understand their consumers very well. In the US, they are full-on NBA fans, and so their creativity and their technological advance translate very well in that market because they get the consumers. They're one of them. They're making a game that they want to play, and it works very well for them. In our case here in Asia, it's very different. Obviously, we can't understand billions of customers, so you have to look at metrics, you have to look at focus groups, and all these kind of things is going to give you an insight into your customer. So you're doing the same thing, you're just doing it very, very differently. So this is supported by KPIs. We have massive data on the business side and monetization, but also on the behaviors of people. Where do they stay? Where do they drop? And we profile this user to see exactly what is the individual patterns of all of them. And we learn a lot from that. And that's something that starts to be done in the West as well, but is very, very refined in this region. So overall, the idea is to use the creativity of our guys and what they're good at, but in an environment where they can thrive, which is really what you have to nail if you want to be successful with this game. So some tips about making it all together. So I talked about co-development earlier. So co-development is this system where you have a team focused on the client side, making all the fancy graphics, great AI, and so which is really what the games are good at, originally speaking. And on the other side, you have a team, for example, from Tencent, from Nexon, who's dedicated in doing the overall design of the game and the server side, the community systems. To make these things work together is extremely difficult because there's a lot of misunderstandings. The people have very different background, but once it works, it's basically something that's very has a lot of value, basically. It's you are using the best of both worlds. You're bringing the quality and the high production values on one end, and you're bringing the accessibility of these online services that we all know very well here. So some of the keys to make this work is obviously to monitor this from very, very close, and experience helps in detecting where issues can be. Another thing is, as I mentioned earlier, is to have the teams in the same place. So that's the reason why we have senior engineers from NBA 2K who are now living in Shanghai next to the development team of Tencent. It's also based in Shanghai. These guys are constantly together. So they're almost a single team. Same thing in Korea. We've built a studio to make a baseball game with Nexon, and they are sitting 500 meters from each other. And that was the key for us to have a development process that works well and have a shared vision between both teams. You set common targets and objectives, obviously, and now we have monthly targets and monthly objectives for our development teams, and that's a way for them to look at really the results, the instant results of their work, which is the culture that we're trying to bring into the console developers, to tell them, okay, what you're doing now has a value, but really is going to be tested very quickly, so let's check right away if you're doing the right thing or not. And so we have these monthly steps. They're setting their targets themselves, but at least there is this short cycle in development and results that can be done. Once we go live, obviously it's a long process. In the case of NBA 2K, for example, we had our first public beta in June last year, just in time for the close of the 2013 season. And so 2 weeks ago, we did our last open beta, the final one. We pushed a lot of marketing. We unveiled some really great stuff. We had Michael Jordan to participate in the campaign. And we did really massive user acquisition together with Tencent. And so in between these two steps, from the first time you open public to your final marketing push, there is a series of small steps that you're going to take, where you're going to check your KPIs all the time and see if you acquire well, if you retain well, and every baby steps in the process is going to be checked against a specific metric. So that's very interesting because basically it guarantees you a path where once you put your big marketing effort, you're actually successful, and it's a sure win. So you're limiting the risk from the equation. The drawback is that you need to be patient. You need to really take your time into going to market and not go too fast, because you're going to end up spending a lot of marketing and see your users leave after level 10 or something. So this is the system we've been using with Tencent to go live. And once we're live, then obviously you do usual things. You balance your game. You check, the monetization aspects. You grow your ARPU and carefully, so the people stay. You still bring a lot of updates, new features, and you have your creative guys working on this. When we plan our life cycle, basically now we're splitting the team into two teams. One team that is, I would say, the creative side, and they think, in terms of new features on a one-year basis. What are we going to do next year? What's cool for people to play? What are we going to do for the next season? So those are really the guys working on the creative side on new features. And we have the development/operation people who are running events, who are really running the daily, the weekly, and the monthly updates. And so by splitting the teams, basically you have this interesting balance of operations, creativity in your development. So far, it's been doing well. So, for example, to give you a few results, we're not really in a position to announce publicly the results yet, but it's public information that in the last 3 weeks, NBA 2K Online is the 10th most highest played game in China right now. So we are above World of Warcraft, we're above some of these biggest properties, so it is working. So we're very early in the game still. I think we're here for the long haul, but clearly it's produced results beyond any other sports games, beyond any other Western sports game in that market. So we're starting to really see the results of that big push. So while we do this, obviously we see the rise of new platforms. We keep monitoring them. We don't always jump on these new platforms. We tend to have a cautious approach to these new things. We've seen platforms go very wild and then bust and wild and bust. So we try to see how they fit in within what we want to do, which again is all about the customer focus. How do we bring an experience that's on par with what we can provide on console? How do we please the customer, because that's unique. That has a lot of value. This is good for your ARPU, but it's also good for your life cycle, and it's good for everything, basically. So this is basically where it ends right now. We still have a lot of games to launch. We're going to make some announcements on Civilization Online within the year, and this really significant project. I think that Asia hasn't seen this kind of large-scale projects for a long time, and so we're very happy as Take-Two to be really putting a big effort into this. We are also working on more sports games. So this baseball game I talked about briefly, obviously NBA is going to be a big piece, and we've announced plans to release in Philippines, in Taiwan, after China. So that's already something that's going to be rolling out. And we have a lot of social and PC and mobile games that we're working on. And so I think the purpose of my talk was really about online, PC, fat client, but basically the idea is that if anyone in the room wants to work on a social project with us, we're very open to that. I think the key is to understand where we come from and all the creative values and production values that we want to retain in our games, and if it fits with your ideas of a social game made on one of our IP, let's talk. We're not licensing people. Our job is not to license our brands to anybody out there. That's not how we make money. We make money by making great games and pleasing our customers.
Thank you very much.